So heading equations. An equation is a mathematical sentence that has an equal sign. And an equation is a little bit like a set of scales. And you've probably seen this drawing before. Let's draw a little set of scales here. And the equal sign sits there. And everything that's on this side of the scales has to equal everything on that side of the scales for the scales to be even. Okay, so think about scales going up and down like this. So if I was to put, say, 7 on this side, I'd have to put 7 on that side. 7 equals 7. But we can put other mixtures of things on the scales. On this side we could put a number plus 4, and on this side we could put 7. So something plus 4 has to equal 7. And I bet you already know that it would be 3 plus 4 equals 7. So that's a little bit about equations. Now, what you will find is in high school we use letters to sit in place of a question mark. So in grade 1 the teacher might give you this. Something plus 2 equals 9. And you would be asked to fill in the box. And in grade 1 you'd put a little 7 in there. 7 plus 2 equals 9. Teacher would give you a nice tick. But in year 9, 10, 11 and 12 we use algebra to solve equations like this. So instead of putting a box or a question mark, we put a letter. Quite often the letter is X, but not always. Now this is a running writing X, because I went to school back in the olden days when we did running writing. It's very important that your algebraic X doesn't look like a times. Okay, so doing an X like this just looks like a multiply, doesn't it? And we don't want that to happen. You don't want an X that looks like that. So I know some students do their X's like something like this. That's fine. Very similar to mine. All right, so instead of a box plus 2 equals 9, it's X plus 2 equals 9. And again, I know that you know the value of X in this equation is 7. But it's not always 7. Here's another example. Something plus 3 equals 12. In this equation, the value of X is 9. 9 plus 3 equals 12. So the value of X can change according to what equation it's sitting in. Or it could be a T or a Y or an S or an M or an L. It could be anything. It just means we don't know the value of that number. So that's all you need to worry about with pronumerals. Okay, now it's all well and good that you know that 9 plus 3 equals 12. But what if you didn't know that? What if these numbers were so big and so complicated that you couldn't do it in your head? You actually need a method of solving. So I'm going to teach you what that method is. Let's start with a similar one to the one we've done before. X plus 2 equals 9. All right. So what I usually say to maths students is we're going to play a game. And the name of this game is called Isolate X. And I'm just going to write the instructions over here. Isolate X. Isolate means get by itself. Okay. Have you heard about people going into ISO? It means they go into their house and they stay by themselves. So we need to get this X on one side of the equation and all the numbers on the other side of the equation. Because once we have all the numbers on one side, we can get our calculator out, type some things in, and find out what equals X. Okay, so the question is, what is on the left-hand side of this equation that would need to be gone in order to leave X all by itself? And the answer to that question is plus 2. Can you see if I took 2 away from this side, X would be left alone? If I gave you 2 pens plus 2 and then took away the pens, you would be there, but the pens are gone. And it's the same with the 2. X plus 2 minus 2 is just X. And we call that an inverse operation. So in other words, the inverse operation of plus 2 is minus 2. And we're going to do that to both sides of the equation. So if you're just looking at this up here, and the value of the scales over here is 7 and 7, if I take 2 from this side, 7 take 2 equals 5, I have to take 2 from the other side, 7 take 2 equals 5, and that keeps the scales balanced. Remember, equations are just sets of scales. So let's take 2 from the left-hand side, x take plus 2 take 2 is just x, and on the other side we're going to write 9 take 2. And then you could get your calculator out if it was all big ugly numbers, couldn't you? X equals 7. Do you see how I'm keeping my equal signs nicely lined up so that it's easy for the teacher to read your progress? Let's do another one. Let's do a plus 5 equals 16. A plus 5 equals 16. Okay, so what number plus 5 equals 16? Well, you know it's 11, don't you? 11 plus 5 equals 16. We all know that. But let's pretend we're working with really big, ugly numbers and we're going to use algebra. So what's the name of the game? In this game, the name of the game is to isolate A. In other words, let's get A all by itself on one side of the equal sign, and let's get all the other stuff on the other side of the equal sign, stuff that we can stick into our calculator. We can stick pluses and 5s and 16s into our calculator, can't we? But we can't stick an A into it, so we need to get all the maths on one side and the pronumeral on the other side, and it doesn't matter which way we do it. We can put A on the left or the right, it doesn't matter. We'll get to some of those later. All right. Next thing we have to ask ourselves is, what do I have to get rid of on the left-hand side to leave A by itself? Well, in this case, let me get a different colour, we have to get rid of plus 5. So what's the inverse operation of plus 5? It is minus 5. So let's minus 5 from both sides of this equation. A plus 5 minus 5 is A. And 16 minus 5 goes on the other side. 16 minus 5 is 11. A equals 11. All right, let's try one that has a minus in it. X minus 6 equals 8. X minus 6 equals 8. What number, when we take 6 away from it, will leave 8? Right, well, what's the name of the game? The name of the game is to isolate x. In other words, let's get x all by itself. Let's circle everything on the left-hand side that's not x. Minus 6. What is the inverse operation of minus 6? Well, it's plus 6. Let's plus 6 to both sides of this equation. X minus 6 plus 6 is just x. And on the other side, 8 plus 6. 8 plus 6 is 14. You can use a calculator if you don't know that. It's no problem using a calculator. Let's check our answer. 14 minus 6 is 8. Correct. I hope this video helps. I'm going to ask you to have a look at this worksheet, which will be attached to the